All those years that I put in the footwear industry were crucial because they helped develop this product, this particular brand. I had industry knowledge, I had industry experience, and I knew people that can help make it happen.
Welcome to the B2B Breakthrough Podcast. We're here to bring you all the best knowledge, insights, and strategies from e-commerce experts, successful business owners, and the team at Alibaba.com that you'll need to grow your business and achieve your next big breakthrough. I'm your host, Sharon Gai. Our guest today is Matt Jones, founder of the Crease Beast and one of Alibaba.com's many business success stories. You may have seen him around on our socials, and you may even be a customer of his. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
So you started a product called Crease Beast. For those of us who aren't as familiar about the product, can you just tell us what it is?
It's designed for sneaker enthusiasts. So those who really care about footwear aesthetics, how their shoes look on feet as they're wearing them. So it's a crease protector. So when people naturally walk, your shoes crease on the toe box area. So we created a product that you can wear that's comfortable, that prevents the creases from forming in new shoes and knocks out creases in old shoes. So it's very valuable to those people who really love sneaker aesthetics.
How did you come up with the product idea?
Me and my co-founder, we grew up together back in middle school. We would stuff our shoes with old socks as we're wearing them to knock out the creases. It was the way that we wanted to keep our shoes fresh. And we took that idea from when we grew up, using that in high school and middle school, and I kind of revolutionized it, the way our product is designed. It mimics that same kind of aspect where ours is a piece of foam, but that's what's sitting on top of your shoe as opposed to like the extra sock that's knocking out the creases. It's a much more comfortable way of doing it, but that was the essence of it.
So you were stuffing your shoes for tons of years. So that means you had the product idea, or maybe you didn't have the product idea, but you had the product inspiration maybe when you were 12.
Exactly. Crazy how it revolutionized, like almost 20 years later. We were just talking about ideas of things we could do, but that's where it started. Because I worked in the footwear industry my whole life, almost after high school, and I'd never seen anything like it. So we kind of just thought about like, you know what, there's something to it. And thankfully, it took off.
Tell me more about the footwear industry and what you were doing before. You used to work at Skechers. Is that where the idea sort of solidified even more when you were seeing your customers walking around with crease shoes? And maybe that's why they would walk into Skechers for another new pair. What was that part of your experience like?
Fresh out of high school, I was working retail, working in warehouse jobs, cashier jobs, whatever it was. I was always a big shoe enthusiast growing up. So it was natural to work in an environment like that. It was familiar to me and it was easy to kind of like move up the ranks because I knew a lot about shoes and I had a good work ethic. So essentially, after I graduated high school, 10, 15 years later, I worked at Skechers as a store manager. I worked at Skechers as a corporate lead one time. And essentially, I saw the industry developing from an analytical lens. I saw what the customers were buying. I saw that they were shopping for more aesthetics. And I'd seen that a lot of people were buying more accessories with their shoes as opposed to just buying just standard socks or shoelaces. People were buying things to enhance the appearance of their shoes. And there are crease protectors on the market, but none are like the Crease Beast. So that's where I got the analytical sense like, hey, like there's a small niche in this big industry that's slowly developing. And with the right products, it can really, really enhance this niche of aesthetics. And that's essentially where the idea started to craft itself when I was working on the retail side.
So I know for myself as a shoe owner, not so much a sneakerhead, but I know one thing that I have is the spray where you spray it onto your shoes that it's water repellent. I don't know if you call that a shoe accessory. That's more of a ancillary item you see in a shoe store. I would imagine that's where Crease Beast would be located, is when you're checking out. And was that sort of your thought in where to place that item? And what other types of items did you normally see around that counter?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was strategically be placed at the checkout, just to always try to get an add-on when a customer's buying some shoes. It's an easy add-on like socks. It's like, hey, do you want to protect your shoes from creasing? Here's this crease protector. And I kind of seen that from the product itself, crease protectors in general were selling a lot more over like the past 5-6 years. I'm like, okay, the fact that people are open to the idea of wearing something inside their shoe that's not necessarily a shoe cleaner or anything like that, it's actually just to enhance the appeal of it. I started to see that there was an opportunity there. And that's essentially where the Crease Beast is stationed in the retail stores that it is in, right at the counter, right before checkout, to get people more likely to buy it. as people started to buy more, the crease protectors in general, you just started to see the industry blooming into what it is now. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And old shoes are now one of the big things. People buying all vintage stuff and reviving them. And that's a part of the revival process, not just cleaning them, but knocking out the creases. So this niche kind of developed at the right time where we introduced the Crease Beast. The retail aspect of my background played a key part in the development of it.
That's such a good point because right now I think there's that trend of sustainability and the circular economy to not maybe buy a new pair of shoes, but just revive an old pair. I can see the product really coupling well with that. I must confess, when I first saw the product, I was like, wow, this is a premium product. You're selling tons of it. But the first thought that I had was, why isn't his product the entire sock? Why just that little tip part where you put the foam inside? Why don't you keep continuing and completing for the rest of the foot?
That's a great point. Initially, when we started the design of the Crease Piece, it was a full length sock. But finding the right manufacturer for it has been very challenging because it's a sock that essentially has never been created with a pocket on the top of it. Like there's been socks that have like pockets on the tube part or things of that nature, but no one has created a sock essentially for crease protection that's on the top of the metatarsal area of your foot. So over the past 2 years since we launched, we actually been working with manufacturers on the side trying to get a full length sock developed. And breaking news, but we have finally found it. It's going to be released in the next few months. So it's been a long journey to get the full length socks, but that was the initial path at first. But it was just so hard to find the right manufacturer to do it because it was so technical. But now we finally found it and we've approved a prototype and it's going to be releasing very, very soon. And we think that that's really going to like take off because a lot of people don't like the idea of wearing two socks because they think their feet get hot, even though it's a real thin sleeve. But just the general idea of wearing two socks might stray away a potential customer. So we are developing a sock. It's on the way and we cannot wait to release it.
So speaking of manufacturers, you went on Alibaba.com to find your manufacturers. Was that the first place that you thought of when you were looking for a manufacturer? Or did you look around at your local textile shops to find somebody else local to you?
Absolutely. Alibaba did not come first. I thought, although it would have been very beneficial, it saved me a lot of time if I'd known about Alibaba and all the capabilities through the platform. But it first started off with this local seamstress, kind of giving her the sketch and like, hey, this is the idea of it. Can you make some kind of concoction that looks similar to what this sketch is? And then that kind of gradually developed into like, okay, well, we realized that since this is a new invention, maybe we should seek outside counsel for it. We just kept digging around. We got a few good prototypes from our seamstress. And once we had a nice prototype, we came across Alibaba, and that's when we started to reach out to manufacturers through that platform. And then it was like a domino effect. We ended up finding a good person to make a sample. One thing led to another, like, okay, this can actually work. Samples at functioning prototypes. And like we ended up, using like a sample group to test them all out. So I think Alibaba was probably third in the process on finding a manufacturer. We started local, then we saw a bigger company, but then eventually landed on Alibaba.
So in a previous episode, we talked to someone who created a product called Shampoo Time, and her product was this mat. And she said that she built several iterations with several different manufacturers in kicking her product off. And also she said that it was pretty tough to find a manufacturer at first because she had a small order size. Did you have the same difficulty?
That was absolutely a challenge because every single manufacturer has different protocols on their minimum order quantities, how much you have to order before they even start production or even a sample. Like everyone's different. So we did come across a few manufacturers at first that like, no, you have to order a lot more before us to do production or something like that. Since it was a custom production for those sleeves, the foot sleeves, it took like a whole assembly line of people to make it. So like they wanted a certain amount that you had to buy first, but that was definitely a hurdle. Eventually we found some that agreed to produce a small amount because launching out, we didn't want to invest so much money to where like we have so much inventory, we're just sitting on it if it didn't work. So we wanted to start with a small amount. We started with 2,500 units. And we finally found a manufacturer who was able to grant that request. And thankfully, it worked out that way because gradually the orders increased. But for them to take a chance on us, they basically said, we'll do it, but you got to show that orders will increase over time. And thankfully, that relationship has become fruitful enough to where we're getting a lot bigger orders now. And they're thankful that they took a chance on us.
Do you think you have a pretty good relationship with that manufacturer by now? Where are they located?
They're in Guangzhou. We have 5 different manufacturers in China that do the products. One company does the sleeves, one company does the foam, another company does the packaging, and they kind of all work in unison to develop the one product.
Oh, okay. So you're parsing out different pieces of the product to different manufacturers. But when it's shipped to you in the US, is it already assembled together so that you already have the final product, or do you have to piece it together yourself?
Yeah, so we have to do the assembly and the shipping because not all aspects of the product are completely perfect to where we can have an assembly group out there. That's something that we are working towards. But we're constantly refining the product as time goes along. Like we're taking the customer feedback, tweaking it here and there, and making sure we have the perfect product. In a perfect world, we want to get it to where it's, straight assembly line, it's just cranking out, all automated. But as of right now, it's shipped from China to the US, and then we do all the assembly here along with the shipping.
So I noticed that your packaging is actually pretty unique. It reminds me of a very expensive wallet that you would buy because it looks like a very, very hard box. What gave you that inspiration to design that type of outer packaging?
My partner, the co-founder of the company, he's the branding, marketing, design genius. His background is all graphic design, marketing, branding, advertising. So he had already worked on a bunch of different packaging products throughout his time as a graphic designer. And once this inspiration came along, we kind of wanted to make a theatrical feel. So if you notice, the logo has like that 3D effect to it, like one of those spotlights that you see in the sky. We kind of wanted to create that kind of same imagery. So that's what inspired it. We wanted to use red because it's like one of the most recognizable colors called out. And the name Crease Beast itself can take different kind of tones. You can take like a character tone, it can take a dominant tone. So we thought it was a versatile enough title to where we had some flexibility when we started making content for it. So like the initial inspiration was to make like a theatrical feel to the box. That's why it's designed how it is.
Is there a mission statement that you've created for the company that folds into that whole marketing or branding, that voice of the brand?
Absolutely. It's not like a trademarked or anything like that, mission statement, copyright or anything like that. But it's essentially like we cater to those old school hip hop sneakerheads who grew up in that same era as us, listening to like 90s hip hop growing up, really worried about the aesthetics of their shoes and their clothes, just kind of like that. It was like the late 90s, early 2000s where everybody's like had their own groups, everybody's unique in their own way. So it kind of embodies that spirit. We're just basically giving all those sneakerheads from that era and all the new upcoming generations a taste of what we grew up with in our mission. So we're just trying to give all the sneakerheads something that they can use for a long time and keep their shoes fresh for a long time because shoes these days are super expensive. Like they're getting higher and higher prices these days. So people like to hold on to what they have. They don't like to resell it. So they want to keep what they have in pristine condition. So that's our value proposition, is to offer a product that will keep the lifespan of your shoes way longer than it would without this product.
And then as you were finding your manufacturers, suppliers for the packaging, the sleeves, the foam, what do you think most entrepreneurs miss out on if they're not building good relationships with these different suppliers? What's the opportunity cost?
I mean, it's essential to develop a relationship with your manufacturers. Obviously, it's a business transaction at the end of the day. Like these are people, they have their own individual lives, and they all come to work to put the best possible product out there for their clients. And, we have to remember that human side of the business. And we take time to really thank them and tell them that we appreciate them and, just keep them encouraged when like a sample isn't right or we have to redo something. Just having a human side of your relationship is important because as these relationships grow and they foster and they become more fruitful, you become to recognize that they can offer more, essentially. It's like we've had manufacturers who we wanted to do one product because that was what their expertise was. But as the relationship developed over time, like, hey, we can do this too. Like, so we've had several manufacturers that work with us that have done multiple projects outside of what the natural scope was. And that's all just because we talk to them, we give them feedback. And sometimes they call us, even though the time difference is crazy, we'll stay up just to talk to them on the phone because they have, really good English translators. We're able to develop that communication with them, and it has done nothing but great things for us.
Have you been to China yet to visit them, see them in action?
Not yet, but that's definitely on our bucket list. We want to do that in the very near future because we're just curious. We just want to see the environment, see how it works out. And they've invited us, like, hey, like, yeah, whenever if you come out here, come check out the facility, see how everything's go. That's definitely on our list of things to do.
Yeah, I think in China, the sneakerhead culture is also starting to bubble up. I also think it could be an interesting product for the Chinese market too, if you ever do venture over there. So when you first launched, was your first social media channel, what were you trying to concentrate on in terms of launching?
Instagram was our primary focus because we just look at all the stats of all the social media, and that was the number one recommended for startup growth. Instagram has so much reach that if you have some viral content, you're able to get a lot of followers, very fast. So we concentrated on Instagram first, but we made accounts for every platform out there, but we concentrated on Instagram content and then kind of like use the same content we'll post on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and a variety of other platforms.
Did you hire somebody to do that for you, or were you a social media guru to begin with?
So my partner, he's the social media guru. So he's the one who designed the whole layout of the Instagram and all the pages and like how everything is sequenced out. The content we both collaborate on, like he does all the video and the editing and all the nuts and bolts of it. But like we both creatively come up with concepts for videos and like how they're all structured and laid out. So, I have a hand in that part. I do more of the logistics side, but whenever we do create content, we just do it together. And we've hired random influencers here and there just to do product like videos and content for us. But for the most part, we do everything ourselves.
Yeah, I think I've seen you in some of those videos. And I think you guys also design your own storyline, you write your own script and then shoot it. Does that come pretty easy to you, or does it take a while to come up with the different scenarios to insert that product? Because ultimately it's a piece of content, but it's also an ad.
Exactly. So believe it or not, it comes fairly easy. We both like the same kind of music, and that's kind of what we base it on. Like if we hear like an old school song that has like a good concept to it or a good beat that people don't really hear often, we'll use old school songs, old school genres of music to give us that inspiration. And then sometimes based on the lyrics of the song, the beats and how they transition, we'll kind of use those to our advantage in the video to sync up with the movements. So we have a whole formula in place, but the inspiration is pretty easy. We just sit down in the living room and just throw on some music and kind of think like, oh, this song has some potential to throw some Crease stuff in it. Like the song may not even directly relate to shoes at all, but sometimes it's catchy enough to kind of got to get that viewer in there.
I have never heard of that way of creating videos before, where you pick out the background music first, which sometimes for some video creators, that might be the last thing that they think of to pair with the video. Okay, that's interesting. So then it also sounds like, because there's so much of that music influence, are you hoping, or maybe you already are, working with some hip hop artists right now to either be an ambassador for your product or figuring something along those lines? Because in another interview we had done with Shampoo Time, the founder had said that Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, they would have just found her product and shot videos around it. That also contributed to her follower count. Is that going to be weaved into your social media strategy or marketing strategy somehow down the road?
Absolutely. That's our goal, is to find people in that area that we were influenced by, popular artists that come from the same background and love shoes, love hip hop. So we definitely want to get an influencer of that magnitude eventually. I think with our natural growth and the traction that we're on now, like we'll eventually come across those communication channels where we can actually find or reach out to some of these artists that we envision will work well with our product and how our social media is set up. So that's definitely a goal. Nothing as concrete as of right now, but like kind of as we grow, we're just looking at our followers to see if one of our followers becomes one of our favorite artists and we can reach out to them directly. So we're just kind of waiting for that opportunity to present itself, but that's definitely in the plans to market our product better through those hip hop artists.
They say 2024, especially the time that we're in now, it's a time for manifesting. Is there a particular artist you would love to collaborate with? You can give them a shout out on this podcast.
Yeah, he's a fairly new artist. His name is Conway the Machine. He just kind of embodies the whole spirit of what we're doing. And it'll be ideal, even if I was like a little photo shoot or something, like we just envision like his whole aura with our brand and syncing perfectly. That would be somebody we have on the radar for sure.
As part of Alibaba's ecosystem, you're definitely one of our success stories. And as you have taken part in the different networking events that Alibaba has in its ecosystem, what is your biggest piece of advice for other aspiring entrepreneurs?
Well, I'm just thankful to Alibaba for providing the platform and all the different opportunities that they've, reached out to me about, and been able to showcase our story through Alibaba has been just a blessing in itself. But as far as advice to new entrepreneurs, I would just say just take that chance, don't always follow a trend. That's the easy thing to do. Like see something that's successful and mimic it and just hope for the same kind of success. But if you really believe that you are an innovator at heart and that you have unique ideas, take a chance, step out in faith because you never know that it could work out for you. That's essentially what we did. We put something out there that didn't exist and the world took to it. And, we have a lot of people who are thankful that we took the chance. So that will be my main advice to entrepreneurs is just stop waiting around. Don't wait for things to be perfect. It's going to be hard to get things perfect in your head how you want it. But if you just step out there with an imperfect way, you'll be surprised on how many people embrace you and kind of give you more confidence to keep going. So I would definitely tell entrepreneurs to embrace that innovative side. Those ideas that you think in your head can only work, they might work in the real world. So, it's really important just to put them out there.
Was this your first product?
Yes, it was the first product.
So you're one of the lucky ones to have not having had launched something before and maybe it didn't go as well as it did for you. So I guess what traits or qualities do you think entrepreneurs can have when they're launching something?
Although this wasn't my first product ever being launched, in this consumer product goods space, but, there were other businesses that I tried before, just the real estate, cars. I tried a bunch of different avenues of the entrepreneurial lane that weren't successful that helped me gain the confidence, even though I wouldn't look at them as failures. I just feel like I don't have the resources to complete these right now. So let me just pivot and move on to something that I may have the resources or I can gain the resources to do. So that's what really pushed me over the finish line was perseverance. If I didn't have the confidence, even through failure, to try something else, then I would have never succeeded at this. So it's really important to go through those bumps in the road because I think they develop your character and they give you that hunger to keep striving for more because sometimes that first pivot doesn't go the right way, but the second one might be the best thing that ever happened to you. I kind of walk with that mantra like, all right, the next idea might be the greatest thing I ever came out with. So I'm gonna just keep putting them out there and just hope for the best. Obviously you do your research and you want to do it the right way, but there's a lot of equity in just taking a chance.
It sounds like the launch was very successful, but was it all rainbows and roses from day one, or were there some challenges?
Yeah, there were definitely challenges, I would say, on the supply chain side, like with getting things manufactured in China. It could be 30 days to 90 days or 120-day turnaround, depending on what time of year you're doing things. So being mindful of how you're structuring, your launch with your manufacturers is very crucial. A lot of people get things manufactured all over the world, but, knowing the timelines on things, that was a hurdle for us because we were told, okay, to expect it on this date, but then it got pushed back another month. And then we had to redo all of our social media that was slated for the date that we originally had it scheduled to release. So I think being succinct with your supply chain, that was really crucial. And those are hurdles that people can't avoid in this process of launching a product if they know exactly when to expect things and knowing that there might be hurdles along the way.
Do you think as a way to de-risk from the supply chain side is to maybe find two manufacturers so that if one can't fulfill a certain need to potentially go to the other? Or how would you de-risk that?
It'd be ideal to find manufacturers that were close in proximity, but sometimes that's not always what's feasible, especially when it comes to certain products that certain areas of the world specialize in. If you want the best quality product, you got to go to a certain part of the world for it. But it would be ideal to have two manufacturers in place. We did have two manufacturers for each part of the product, but they were all still in China either way. But we ended up getting stuff from multiple to finally choose the ones we wanted to go with. So that helped. But if a up-and-coming entrepreneur had a way to get two manufacturers in different parts of the world for whatever they're, launching, if it's something along those lines, then I would definitely recommend that because you just never know what to expect from the supply chain and throughout those other countries.
Yeah. So also in previous episodes, we talked about how entrepreneurs, when they have restrictions with their capital, that they can always go to grants for some help. And I know you have been the recipient of many different grants. Are there certain ones that you recommend other potential entrepreneurs to try out or apply to?
Absolutely. I mean, these grants are there, and a lot of people don't have the networks available to know when they're available and you can apply to them and that you are eligible for them. But it's really important to get in those circles, sign up for those newsletters. For example, the Chamber of Commerce, they produce a weekly and sometimes monthly listings of grants that are available through different sectors of the business industries of the world. Hello Alice is another good one. That's how I found the Alibaba grant through Hello Alice. And they have a huge network of different kind of grants that are available for different businesses, minority entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, veterans. I mean, the list goes on and on about what's available out there. It's just really knowing that they're available and you can apply to them and that you're eligible for them. Like most people are just completely oblivious to those networks. So that would be a recommendation of mine to other entrepreneurs is sign up for the Chamber of Commerce, sign up for the Small Business Development Center that's in your local area.
Have you ever hired a business coach before?
We have not personally. That's something that we entertain because we've been through like a few accelerator programs where they would like assign us a mentor and things of that nature. So essentially, we've had coaches throughout the process. We just never like formally hired one for us directly. But if that's in the budget for up and coming, I would definitely recommend it because they're going to just prevent you from making mistakes that you might not know about because they've been through it, they've coached other people through it, and they can give you that essential advice to help you avoid some of those pitfalls.
What other resources or knowledge hubs for entrepreneurs to start? Where can they learn more about how they should make decisions?
So there are some free resources out there. One I mentioned previously, the SBDC, that's the Small Business Development Center. They're paid for by the US government and they're free resources. Essentially, they're like strategically placed throughout the US, but there's always one in your region that you can call and they'll assign an advisor to you. They'll set up meetings with you. They'll look at your business plan, analyze it, and give you ideas and advice on who to reach out to. They're there as a free resource for us. So if you have zero budget for anything, that's something that you can tap into. The SBDC, they're all over the US and they're there to help us thrive in our businesses because without small businesses, the US economy is nothing. So they want to make sure that the upcoming businesses have the resources that they need to, really thrive.
Where else do you turn to for inspiration? Are there certain brands that you aspire to take a page from their playbook?
Absolutely. Nike is the number one footwear brand in the world by far. So like pretty much everything they do we have a close eye on. We're kind of like, all right, if Nike is doing this, like there's a reason why they've done the research. They have the unlimited budget to do whatever they want. Companies like Kith is another one we look at, as we aspire, like we like their aesthetics. We like how they're tapped into the hip hop culture, the sneakerhead culture. It's very inspiring. So we always look at Nike and Kith as like the two main brands that we aspire to be like.
Crease Beast is also one of those products where you might buy a pair and then it might be tough to have the same customer repurchase. Are there new products that you're launching down the road where you're trying to get your current set of customers to purchase again from you?
Absolutely. And that's where the socks creates that opportunity. Socks have a certain lifespan to them. And if you look at like the real big sock companies like Stans, Bombas, they all operate like on subscription style businesses. That's something that we envision for our socks too, is like a subscription model to where we keep that return business coming. We also plan on releasing our own version of the footwear products that are out there today. Your standard shoe cleaners, your sneaker wipes, sneaker sole protectors. Like there's a bunch of different products that are out there currently that we plan on putting our own twist to where it kind of create those other customers. And we also have some new inventions in the footwear space that we're going to come out with as well under the same umbrella. So we have a huge product line that we're gradually rolling out, year by year. But as of right now, we have plans for the next 5-10 years to gradually release different kind of products and new products to the space.
Since we're talking about feet accessories, I have always thought of, I don't know if one day you want to have a section for women who wear heels, like a heel beast. The balls of my feet really hurt when I have to wear heels for a very long time. Have you thought about something specifically for women and in that direction for comfort of something when you're wearing a really, really tall heel?
Absolutely. You'd be surprised how many women have reached out to us and asked us about that exact product. Like, hey, like I see you guys, use memory foam in your product. I know that there's always that friction issue that a lot of women deal with, not only in the back, but like on the balls of your feet, the metatarsal area. There's a lot of areas of the heel that could be padded. So we've definitely looked at that. We're kind of developing ideas on the best way to present that to that demographic, but it's already in the pipeline. So recognizing these little problems within this niche of the industry has been valuable with this brand because we've gotten ideas from our customer base to lay the foundation for the future. We're looking into that space of women and heels because we know it's a huge market. A lot of women wear heels on a regular basis daily. So why not make a more comfortable experience?
Or I think it's more like a lot of women avoid heels because we don't want to have painful feet. So we end up not doing it. We end up not wearing the heel because there is no solution to reduce the pain.
I can totally imagine. And I'm here for you.
What has been your proudest achievement so far as a business owner?
Just the fact that we invented something that didn't exist, like that in itself, it was a huge accomplishment because it was a huge risk. I mean, because most people are more susceptible to like newer versions of things that already exist. That's like the safer thing to do. But when it's something completely new that has never been introduced, especially to the footwear space, to where footwear industry has been blooming for years. I mean, everybody wears shoes. The popularity has increased a lot. So to introduce a product that was never seen in this space and for it to be received, that is a huge compliment to us because in our head, it worked.
Nice. What would you say are your biggest learnings in 2023?
It was probably learning that everybody has a different experience. Not one person who has an issue with a certain product doesn't mean the entire demographic feels the same. We started off with one size of the Crease Beast. Now that there's 5 different sizes of it. So that all developed over time, getting feedback and going back to the lab and coming back out with different products. So we launched pretty much every single size except one more coming out last year. And that was all based on the feedback that we were getting throughout the year. So it was a great learning experience to kind of not take it as criticism, but like constructive criticism. Like, hey, like your product is good, but for my foot, it'll work better if it was a little smaller or a little skewed. So, we took that feedback and ran with it. It made our company grow even more. So it was a great learning experience.
And finally, did you ever think one day that you would be founding this type of company that's also making this product innovation? Did you ever think you were going to be at the spot you are right now?
I didn't, honestly. Although I had like a love for shoes growing up, I never envisioned myself in this industry long term. It was one of those things like, okay, as I'm in college, as I'm working, I need a job. So why not work in a comfortable space? And like, I didn't really like have any intentions to like grow. Like I wanted to like grow as much as I could within my position or like within the company I worked for at the time. But I didn't really see myself as like a potential pioneer in the industry or anything like that. I was like, all right, bridge the gap until I figure it out to make something else work better. And lo and behold, it developed. All those years that I put in the footwear industry were crucial because they helped develop this product, this particular brand, exponentially because I had industry knowledge, I had industry experience, and I knew people that can help make it happen. So in retrospect, I look back in hindsight, I'm like, okay, I was thankful for those times, even though I didn't really find value in them at the time outside of a paycheck. But now it's like, okay, it all makes sense. It's like a full circle thing.
You can only make sense of the past by looking back and connecting the dots. What advice would you have given to your teenage self?
That's a great question because I always look back like, what could I have done? Or I wish I would have had this advice coming up because I would have like shaved off a few years in this, but everything happens for a reason.
Not make as much money for Skechers, maybe.
Right. Just pivot a little sooner, but everything happened in due time. But I would tell that younger me is just to keep the same work ethic I've always had. Put your head down, accomplish the goal, only worry about what you control. Essentially believe that there's more and believe that there's better possibilities, but it's important to really focus on what's in front of you, making the best situation of what you have in front of you first, and then it'll gradually develop. I think sometimes I got down on myself growing up because I'm like, I just didn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. But going back, if I had a chance to give myself advice, I'm like, hey, your time is coming. Just keep doing what you're doing. Like you're putting time in the right areas. You're not wasting time. And everybody has their own clock. So we should never compare ourselves to somebody else's time, somebody else's trajectory. Focus on what you can control and, let the chips fall where they may because they may fall in a place where you envisioned or, something even greater. And that's the path I'm on now. And I couldn't be more thankful for it.
That's some great advice. And I really like the way that you worded all of that as well. Thanks so much for being on our show.
Been a pleasure.
B2B Breakthrough is brought to you by Alibaba.com. To find out how Alibaba.com is empowering its customers with the tools, services, and resources they need to grow their businesses, visit Alibaba.com. And then make sure to search for B2B Breakthrough Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to follow us so you don't miss future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Alibaba.com, thanks for listening.